Hey folks, it's officially week 1 of our journey here in Culleoka, Tennessee to build an organic farm and a nomadic hotel of sorts. And I guess the quick way to sum up what we're trying to do is nourish bodies with organic clean food, nourish the land with regenerative agriculture and clever interconnected systems, and nourish souls with loving community, unique experiences, and connection with nature. So we are starting like a mini YouTube documentary to document how it goes to build this amazing place. And as you can see, we're standing in the upper field. And this is just a tiny little piece of this amazing 175-acre piece of property. There's a huge spring with beautiful, delicious, cold flowing water. There's tons of wildlife, beautiful fields like this, but then also some ridges that have beautiful sunset views. So we cannot wait to share this place with you. And officially, this is our first interview with Chris Gramling, who is the owner of this 175-acre farm. And we're gonna switch spots right now so that we can interview him.
Good work, Erin.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Erin.
So my first question for you is, you grew up in Long Island, New York. Would you ever imagine yourself standing here in kind of the middle of nowhere in Tennessee, owning 175 acres?
That's a good question. Probably not when I was 30 years old or in my 20s, but yeah, later. Back in 2007 was when I got really interested in doing something like this. So that was 12 years ago at the time of us filming this video now. So yeah, here I am. I'm really happy about it.
That's amazing how life takes you on wild journeys, and here you are, the proud owner. Tell everyone what you want to do with this property. What is your vision?
Oh, wow, that's a really big question. There's so much. I think that the property is going to teach me things, and you know, everything in life I've found for me, I might have a perspective on that of how I think it's going to be, and I'm always learning and something new happens. So that said, I'm keeping an open mind about it, but what I want to do is replicate what I've seen a guy named Joel Salatin do. Some of you may have heard of him. He's up in Swope, Virginia, and that system basically is to be kind to animals. We're going to eat them. I'm sorry to you vegetarians, but we're going to be kind to them. They're in these confined animal feeding operations now and not treated well, and they're not allowed to roam, and I just think that's wrong. It's not I don't think people should be doing that to animals, and it's not the type of food that I want to eat when it's been produced that way. So I want to do the opposite of that, and Joel has been a mentor and guide in that. So to get into it in a little more detail, we're going to replicate what happens in nature. So if say you're out on the Serengeti, or you're out west, 300 years ago, the animals, or the herbivores, like the cows or the wildebeests or whatever it is, they would mob up and stay in a herd, and they do that as a defensive posture from predators around the perimeter of whatever field they may be in. So I'm not going to import tigers or wolves into Culleoka, Tennessee, but I want to replicate that mobbing behavior of the herbivores. And the reason for that is we want to keep them focused on individual paddocks or individual portions of grass at one time and move them each day. There are a lot of benefits to doing that. It allows the grass to grow, and there's more protein and nutrients and all that, as opposed to if you just let all of the cows loose in the field and the grass never gets an opportunity to grow up. So the way that we replicate those predators is very simple. It's with lightweight electric fencing, and we'll move them from each day. They'll be moved from one field to another, and they get a whole new, as Joel Salatin would say, salad bar experience with fresh grass each day, and they're happy about that. Then behind them, we're further going to replicate what happens in nature, and that's that the birds come through. So in this case, we'll have chicken and turkey, and they'll peck through the pie. They'll go into those actual fields that the herbivores had just been in, the cattle, that might be easier to say. And they'll peck at the cow pies, and they'll eat the maggots so there won't be flies all over, and they spread the manure around so it gets back into the soil, and the plants have the nutrients. The chickens get to eat bugs out in the field. They can get rid of ticks. Nobody really seems to like ticks these days. I know I don't. And then there are two types. We'll have broilers. Those are birds that are fairly young, and they go in enclosures, and the enclosures get dragged across the field into a new space, and they get some grass, and obviously they get some supplemental feed, and they're protected in there. Then there's the other types. Those are called layers. They lay eggs, and they'll be open in there will be a what's called feather net, electric fence around them, and they'll have a moving house that they can go walk up into at night. We close the door, they roost, they lay their eggs, they're safe from predators, and then in the day, we let them out in the fields. And believe it or not, by putting a goose or two in there, you can protect them. They act like guard geese. They protect them from aerial predators like hawks and things like that. So yeah, that's what happens with the birds, and turkeys will be in a similar situation. Then we'll have hogs in the wooded areas I don't know about this particular one, but this sort of idea where there's trees and nuts falling down from the trees, so they can eat that and they can root. So you may have seen pigs with rings in their noses. I'm not down with that. I don't know. I don't think it looks good, and certainly probably
not a cute look.
Not a good look, right? I think it's cruel. It stops the pig from doing what it does naturally, which is root. So we want to let them root, disturb the forest floor or the woods floor, and turn those more into glens so that we can get more of these prairie type of grasses back in there, and get the dead trees or the trees that are old and diseased out of there. So that's that. Then we'll have, God, I'm rambling on. I hope you guys are still listening. We'll have honey from bees. Those are obviously very important. They're pollinators, and we want to keep them going. We'll have some vegetables. I'll probably end up growing hemp, maybe for CBD, but I kind of don't think so, because everybody's trying to grow it for CBD right now. My guess is there's going to be a glut of that. So I'll grow it for hemp. I wore my tennis shoes, my sneakers down here. Erin's zooming in on. These are by Adidas. I'm happy to get a endorsement from them. These are made out of hemp. So there's lots of other uses for hemp, like fiber, things like that. And the state of Tennessee just made the whole process less restrictive here. So I'll do that. And then I'm just going to see what happens, you know. Oh, and grow vegetables too. We'll grow vegetables. And Erin and I were talking about getting a flower business going too. So there's so many opportunities here. I'm sorry for chewing everyone's ears off, but that's it in a nutshell.
What is your first order of business here on the farm? Since our list is 500,000 lines long.
Well, I think it's 5,050 lines long. We're going to fix, there was all sorts of stuff that was discovered while we were doing the due diligence to buy the farm. You've got to get a survey done to find out where the boundary lines are, and I'd recommend that anyone that's thinking about buying a farm do that. There were some surprises here. For instance, if you look over this way, there's a road beyond that stand of trees right there, and there's a thin little strip, less than half an acre, that's actually owned by one of our neighbors, and it cuts us off from the road up there. So that was important to learn about that, and hopefully he'll give us access someday. We have our main access down over this way on the other side of the property, and the first order of business is to fix. There's a culvert, which is basically a pipe in the ground that water goes through, and that's pretty washed out, and we're concerned about driving cars over it, let alone big trucks. So that's really the first order of business, getting that thing fixed, and that will allow us to get the equipment in here that we need to do other things.
So So last question, obviously this is just a tiny drop in the bucket of all the things that we have to talk about, but just this being our first video, kind of like a big picture question that I have for you is, in 5-10 years, when you've learned a ton and have gotten your dream operation up and running, and we have streams of super bright-eyed visitors coming to this place, what do you want them to feel? What do you want them to learn? What is your vision for, I guess, the community aspect of what you're trying to do?
Another great question. I thought of all these funny, ridiculous answers, like I want to have Slayer playing down here and doing a big metal show, but we're not going to do that.
I'm giving evil eyes behind the camera.
Sorry about that. What I really want to do is have people experience what I experienced. I grew up on Long Island. It's about maybe an hour or so away from New York City. There's a small farm at the end of the road. And here's some really personal information, I guess. Whoever watches is going to find out.
Internet.
When I was a little kid, I think I was in third or fourth grade, and I had like anxiety back then. I don't know, God knows why. I'm not going to get into it too much, but I remember my mom took me to the doctor, and the doctor said, he's just kind of nervous. He needs something relaxing to do. Have him go to the end of the street that I grew up on and just look at the animals there. It was just a horse farm. And no, not to minimize the importance of horses and horse farms, but it was a small farm. And I remember just going out there and relaxing and feeling good. And that was it was an important thing in my life back then. And it's sort of been a recurring theme. I lived in New York City for nearly 20 years. You can imagine how different that is from this. And I longed for this. I love being out here. It just feels good to be out here, and I think it feels good to be good to animals and be good to the land and be a steward of the land. So I hope that visitors can pick up on that and sort of reconnect with their roots as human beings and being spiritual beings as well, that they can find a sense of peace and a higher power and maybe a different purpose, or hey, just come out and enjoy yourself and get away from the city for a little bit.
Well, that's us signing off. Our very first video of our Pomelo Grove / TBD farm documentary, and stay tuned for our next interview. Bye.
Bye.